Have you ever felt a tidal wave rise inside you from just a single careless comment? Or spiraled into anxiety from a message left on read? Or maybe you tortured yourself all day over someone's disapproving glance? You're not weak. You're simply untrained. Chapter 1. The Storm Inside. Mastering Emotional Discipline. The truth is, the world isn't going to stop hurling rejection, misunderstanding, and judgment your way. But you don't need it to. Stoicism doesn't promise to. Calm the storm outside. It teaches you to master the storm within. That's where your training begins. Not in pretending you don't feel, but in realizing that your feelings don't have to run your life. Emotional discipline isn't about numbness. It's about reclaiming your right to choose your response. Most people live on emotional autopilot. Someone frowns and we panic. Someone criticizes and we explode. But those reactions don't come from the moment. They come from unmet expectations we never questioned. You expected praise and got silence. You hoped for connection and got distance. So you react. But you're not reacting to them. You're reacting to the gap between your hopes and reality. Now, here's the first fall. Most of your suffering isn't caused by what's happening. It's caused by the story you're telling yourself about what's happening. And until you take control of that story, you'll keep handing the script of your life to everyone else. This is why Stoicism begins with training your inner world. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. That's not just a quote, it's a weapon. If someone ignores you and you feel invisible, you've already given them power. If someone interrupts you and you feel disrespected, you've handed them your self-worth. But what if you didn't? What if you trained yourself to pause before reacting? What if you built the strength to stay still when everything in you wants to lash out? That's not repression. That's mastery. David was a lawyer, sharp, logical, but emotionally volatile. A single passive-aggressive email could derail his whole day. Every meeting felt like a battleground where he had to prove his worth. But one afternoon, something changed. A junior colleague accused him of breaking protocol in front of the entire team. Everyone expected him to react. He didn't. He said nothing. He just kept presenting his case. Later, someone asked why. He said, I just didn't want to waste energy on something that wouldn't change anything. That's when it clicked. Calm isn't giving up. Calm is rising above. Here's the second fall, and it's where the real transformation begins. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. And you certainly don't need to respond to every insult. Why? Because the strongest people aren't the ones who feel nothing. They're the ones who've trained their emotions into allies instead of enemies. So ask yourself this: who has the power to disturb your peace? And why did you give it to them? The next time you're provoked, don't react. Observe. Feel the emotion, but don't become it. Choose your response, even if that response is silence. Because sometimes the most powerful move is not moving at all. Chapter 2. Silence is strength. The power of not responding. Silence. Most people fear it. They think silence means weakness, submission, or loss. But what if silence isn't absence? What if it's power held back like a sword not drawn, because the warrior no longer needs to prove himself? Here's the truth most never learn. Silence isn't passive. It's deliberate. It's the art of choosing what deserves your voice. More importantly, what DOESN? Single quotes T. Think about it. Have you ever felt the urge to defend yourself not because it was needed, but because you couldn't bear being misunderstood? That impulse, that fire to be seen, to be right, to be heard, isn't strength. It's fear in disguise. The fear that if you don't speak, you'll disappear. But silence says the opposite. It says, I don't need your understanding to stand my ground. Here's the first fall. We've been trained to believe that reacting proves we're alive. That staying quiet means we've lost. But Marcus Aurelius had a different idea. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That strength, it doesn't shout. It doesn't explain. It just stands in a world addicted to noise. Silence is rebellion. Silence is clarity. Ethan worked at a fast-growing tech firm. Brilliant, sharp, but sensitive. After a company reshuffle, he found himself reporting to a manager who mocked him, cut him down with sarcasm, and questioned his ideas in meetings. At first, Ethan fought back. He responded with logic, with evidence, with passion. He won the arguments and lost the room. Colleagues grew distant. Meetings became tense. No one wanted to take sides, and Ethan found himself increasingly isolated. One day, it changed. Another jab came, but this time, Ethan didn't defend himself. He didn't raise his voice. He simply nodded and kept writing his notes. The meeting moved on. No fire. No drama. But something subtle shifted. Later that day, his manager sent a short message. "I appreciate your professionalism." That was it. No grand apology. No transformation. But for Ethan, that was the moment he realized real strength never needs to shout. Now we reach the second fall. Silence is not weakness. It's self-possession. It's the quiet refusal to let others dictate your internal weather. Anyone can react. Few can choose not to. Fewer still can remain still while being misunderstood, insulted, or provoked, and still keep their dignity intact. You don't need to react to everything. You don't need to correct every assumption or fix every false narrative. Some battles exist only in other people's minds, and you don't have to walk into them. So try this. Pick one day a week where you make a commitment. I will only respond to what helps me grow. Not out of avoidance, but out of focus. Watch how much energy you save. How much clarity returns. The next time someone throws shade your way, remember, they're trying to pull you into their storm, but you don't have to go. Let them rage. Let them twist your silence into whatever story helps. Them sleep. You stay still, because true strength doesn't flinch when misunderstood. It simply walks forward quietly, steadily, unbothered. And that's when silence becomes your armor. Chapter 3. Heal so you no longer react. The Stoic path to inner repair. Some people will poke at your wounds not because they want to hurt you, but because they can feel they're still open. That's the hidden cost of unhealed pain. It leaks into your conversations, your relationships, your self-worth. It turns everyday moments into emotional minefields. A harmless joke becomes an insult. A delay in reply becomes rejection. A boundary becomes abandonment. Not because of what's happening, but because of what hasn't yet healed. And that's the first fall. Your strongest reactions often come from your deepest wounds. The anger isn't about them. It's about you not being heard as a child. The anxiety isn't about the situation. It's about all the times you had to fend for yourself. The jealousy isn't about them moving on. It's about you not feeling enough. Healing doesn't begin with others changing. It begins with you getting honest. We tend to think that healing means letting go of the past. But Marcus Aurelius didn't say, erase it. He said, accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. That's not repression. That's integration. It's not forgetting. It's no longer needing the memory to bleed every time someone touches it. Emily had always been fiercely independent, self-made, self-reliant, but emotionally fragile. The smallest shift in tone from a friend, the smallest break in routine from a partner would send her spiraling into doubt, panic, overthinking. She masked it well, but inside, every silence screamed, "You're about to be abandoned." Then one day, after her third breakup in 2 years, she didn't go to therapy. She didn't read a book. She didn't call a friend. She sat with herself and asked, "What am I really afraid of?" The answer came quietly: being forgotten. That was the real wound. And until that wound was seen, it ran her life. Here's where we reach the second fall. Most of your emotional triggers aren't problems to be solved. They're signals to be listened to. They're pointing to something deeper, something that needs your attention, not your judgment. Stoicism isn't about suppressing those signals. It's about listening with clarity, observing without drowning, healing without blaming. You heal by stopping the war within you, by holding space for your pain, not as something shameful, but as something sacred. Every scar is a page in your story. But if you don't read those pages, if you skip straight to the next chapter, you'll keep reliving the same emotional loops in different costumes, with different people. So here's your practice. The next time you overreact, don't shame yourself. Don't justify it either. Just pause and ask, what is this pain trying to protect me from? The answers won't come all at once, but they will come if you listen long enough, because healing doesn't always look like peace. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like sitting with the storm until it passes. But if you stay with it, you'll notice something strange. The more you heal, the less you react, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started choosing what deserves your care. Chapter 4. When you're no longer impressed by chaos, the calm that terrifies them, there comes a point where the drama no longer excites you. The chaos that once pulled you in like a magnet now feels like background noise. You see the games, the manipulations, the cycles, and instead of reacting, you simply observe. And that's the first unsettling shift. You're no longer impressed by chaos. Most people mistake intensity for depth. Loud arguments feel like passion. Unpredictable partners feel like excitement. But often, that chaos is just trauma reenacted again and again, disguised as connection. You grow up surrounded by emotional turbulence, and soon you learn to confuse stillness with boredom. Peace feels unfamiliar. Quiet feels wrong. But as you evolve, something changes. You stop chasing highs. You start craving peace. Not because you've given up, but because you've woken up. And that's the first fall. Realizing that what once felt like love was often just your nervous system trying to survive. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. That calm? It's earned through suffering, through self-reflection, through choosing day after day not to get dragged into every fire someone else lights. Ryan used to live for the thrill. Heated debates, emotional roller coasters, friends and partners who came and went like storms. It made him feel alive. But slowly, it wore him down. His health declined. His focus shattered. Every relationship turned into a battlefield until one day, something inside broke. After his fourth job burnout in 6 years, Ryan didn't look for another opportunity. He didn't go out. He sat in a park, watching the trees. For hours, just breathing, just being. No need to prove. No need to fix. That moment didn't solve his life, but it changed his trajectory. Because for the first time in years, he tasted stillness, and it didn't scare him. That's the second fall. Chaos only controls you as long as you need it to feel something. Once you find stillness within yourself, you stop being baited by every emotional hook. People who thrive on drama will hate your peace. They'll accuse you of being cold, distant, even arrogant. But what they're really saying is, why aren't you playing this game with me anymore? You don't have to answer. Your silence is the answer when you're no longer impressed by chaos. You walk away from battles, Not because you're afraid, but because you know what peace costs. And it's not up for negotiation. So next time someone tries to bait you into emotional turbulence, ask yourself, is this a storm I need to walk into? Or is this just noise I can let pass? The most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who's calm, clear, and unmoved. Because that person can't be controlled. Be that person. Chapter 5. The exit is the beginning. When leaving becomes liberation, there's a moment quiet, almost imperceptible, when something inside you lets go. Not in bitterness, not in anger, just clarity. You realize you've been holding on to a story that no longer serves you, a person who no longer sees you, a place that no longer grows you. And in that moment, you don't beg, you don't chase, you don't explain, you simply leave. But here's the paradox. That exit? It's not the end. It's the beginning. This is the first fall. The hardest part isn't leaving them. It's leaving the version of you who stayed, the one who tolerated, who hoped, who endured, the one who gave everything they had while receiving crumbs. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke." At any moment, leaving isn't about them. It's about reclaiming that estimate. About realizing your worth isn't tied to how long you can suffer for someone who won't meet you halfway. Maria spent years with a man who loved the idea of her but never really saw her. He admired her strength, yet shamed her vulnerability, celebrated her beauty, yet silenced her voice. She stayed through apologies, promises, even therapy, until one night, after yet another silent dinner, she heard herself think, "I don't belong here anymore." She didn't slam the door. She didn't make a scene. She packed her things with trembling hands, tears in her eyes, and walked out into the cold, alone. But something strange happened. For the first time in years, she could breathe. The second fall is this. Healing often begins with leaving. Not because you hate them, but because you finally love yourself enough not to abandon your own soul. The world may try to guilt you, but they weren't that bad. You could have tried harder. But the truth is, you did try. You gave chances. You forgave. You bent until you broke. And now you rise. Stoicism teaches that freedom is not the absence of external restraint, but the presence of internal clarity. When you walk away from what harms you, you're not losing. It's the start of returning to your values, your peace, your future. You'll be tempted to go back, to re-explain, to second-guess. But remember this. The person who walked away is not the same one who stayed. You left not because you were weak, but because you were finally strong enough to stop betraying yourself. The exit is the beginning, the return to yourself, the rediscovery of your silence, your strength, your stillness. So don't fear the end. Walk through it. Because on the other side of letting go is where you meet who you were always meant to be. When you stop reacting, when you stop chasing chaos, when you finally walk away, something unexpected happens. Remember who you are. If this reflection stirred something in you, subscribe to Stoic Alchemist and activate the bell. This space is for those who refuse to be broken by pain and choose to be remade by it. Until next time, walk wisely. And remember, stillness is not weakness, it's your hidden power.